those errands is Barnes & Noble. I'm pretty excited for it. I actually have no plans. I have very few things actually written on my like 2022 books, little note that I keep in my, like in the notes app on my phone. So the only thing I'm going to try to do, my little rule for today, is if it's on, like if I've pinned it on my TBR board, then I can get it. And if it's paperback. I'm going to try not to spend any money on hardbacks. They're not my favorite to read and they're more expensive. So if you guys saw my like unhaul video, I got rid of 20 books. I did pretty good. So now of course we have to kind of fill those empty spaces with books that I want to read in the new year. So I don't know what I'm going to find, but I'm excited to go shopping. What I found, the two that I need. What is up, guys? Okay, so it is a little bit later. We are back from the bookstore. Just having a chill Saturday. I've got some laundry going, if you can hear that in the background. But I wanted to show you the three that I picked up. In December last year, so like last month, I read Outline by Rachel Cusk. Really loved it. Thought it was a really kind of interesting, unique, very different way of writing about a main character. Typically in a book, a main character is like, at some point they describe themselves, or another character will describe them like physically, and you slowly get to know them as the book progresses. The interesting thing about the Outline trilogy, and these are the other two, is it's like the inverse. It's interesting the way that Cusk writes about her main character, because we are sort of seeing her form slowly but surely, but not even necessarily through the eyes of other people, but just through the way that she's able to like extract information out of other people. I can really relate to her because I feel like I'm one of those people who, I'm very quiet, I'm pretty introverted, and so a lot of the time, I don't know if it's because people don't like the silence and they're uncomfortable in like the awkward silence, but they will fill that space when I'm not talking because I'm fine to just like kind of sit in silence. I actually really hate small talk, and so I feel like people just, they talk to fill the space, and so a lot of times you kind of end up hearing stories about people that you're like, why are you telling me this? Anyway, all of that to say, I really liked Outline, and so I went ahead and picked up the other two books. And what I love about it is it tells you, and I think they're in this order, it tells you on the spine like which one comes next. So Outline I've read, and then Transit, and then Kudos will come next. So Transit looks like this. I love these, what are these, walking sticks or praying mantises? My boyfriend is like obsessed with these. They're really cool looking. Anyway, so the synopsis, they don't even put it on the back. I think it's on the inside. So, in the wake of her family's collapse, a writer and her 2 young sons moved to London. This upheaval is the catalyst for a number of transitions, personal, moral, artistic, and practical, as she endeavors to construct a new reality for herself and her children. In the city, she is made to confront aspects of living that she has until now avoided, and to consider questions of vulnerability and power, death and renewal in what becomes her struggle to reattach herself to and believe in life. When we were in the bookstore, I did not even see that the blurbs were not on the back. I didn't even know what they were about. Like, I bought them blind. I don't even think I read anything about them online, which is kind of a risk. I don't know that I've ever really done this with a series before, so it'll be interesting to see how we go. But that does sound really interesting, and I've always wanted to visit London, so it'll be fun to kind of armchair travel with this book. So that makes me really excited. It's on my TBR for January, so hopefully you guys will get a wrap up or like a review at the end of the month. And then Kudos is the 3rd and final book. This may be my favorite of the covers. I'm obsessed with like the modern, very graphic, the white border. It gives me kind of like Polaroid vibes. And it says, a woman on a plane listens to the stranger in the seat next to hers telling the story of his life, his work, his marriage, and the harrowing night he has just spent burying the family dog. The woman is Faye, who is now on her way to Europe to promote the book she has just published. Once she reaches her destination, the conversations she has with the people she meets about art, about family, about politics, about love, about sorrow and joy, about justice and injustice constitute the most far-reaching questions human beings ask. These conversations, the last of them with her son, rise dramatically and majestically to the startling conclusion of this groundbreaking trilogy. So, that must be her name, because I think I said in my review of Outline, I was like, did I miss her name? Did they not give her a name? I thought for sure I probably just missed it. So those are 2 that I'm very excited for. Maybe I'll get to this one in February. We'll see. I always make plans. Like, do you guys do this? I'm like, oh yeah, I'll read this one then and this one then. But then I mood read, and so it doesn't always happen like that. Regardless, I am excited to read them. And then I actually already started the 3rd and final one that I bought, and I've already marked it up a tiny little bit. This is Eleutheria. I think that's how you say the name. I asked Siri to pronounce it, and she gave me a very robotic, like, not good pronunciation. But the checkout guy at Barnes & Noble, my cashier at Barnes & Noble, he said he had been here. I didn't know this was a real place. It's a real island in the Bahamas. And so I started reading it because of that. So I'm about like 100 pages in or so. I'm really enjoying it so far. It's got a lot of flashback scenes that I'm really hoping pay off, because right now I'm not really seeing where they lead. But I'm really enjoying the main character, Willa. She is one of those kids kind of raised by like prepper parents. It reminds me a lot of Educated by Sarah Westover, which that's like nonfiction. She was like a real person. But that kind of, Willa, the main character in this, reminds me a lot of her. Young, independent, on her own, like, you know, raised by very misguided, fear-ruled parents. And so that's been interesting so far to see how she's like, see how that shaped her, I guess. It says, Willa Marks has spent her whole life choosing hope. She chooses hope over her parents' paranoid conspiracy theories, over her dead-end job, over the rising ocean levels. And when she meets Sylvia Gill, renowned Harvard professor, she feels she's found justification for that hope. Sylvia is the woman in black, the only person who can compel the world to action. But when Sylvia betrays her, Willa fears she has lost hope forever. And then she finds a book in Sylvia's library, a guide to fighting climate change called Living the Solution. Inspired by its message and with nothing to lose, Willa flies to the island of Eleutheria in the Bahamas to join the author and his group of eco-warriors at Camp Hope. But upon arrival, the group's leader, author Roy Adams, goes missing, and the compound's public launch is delayed. With time running out, Willa will stop at nothing to realize Camp Hope's mission. But at what cost? It sounds really good. There's a couple of, I'm just going to read one of these little pages that I marked up for you. I am so obsessed with the way that, because she's arrived at the camp, at Camp Hope, the way that they run the place. Now, obviously there's probably a little bit of there's something sinister brewing, because something that like seems so perfect and so utopic obviously is not going to last. I'm loving the way that it's written. It's giving me a lot of inspiration. I have an idea for a book that is similar to this in some ways, but it takes place in outer space. I won't get into that. It's a book that hasn't been written yet. This just gives you the vibe. She's talking about lunchtime and like how lunch at the camp works. She says, crew members funneled through buffet lines, filling their plates with hydroponic greens and slices of protein loaf, before collecting cups of coconut water fizzed with carbon dioxide extracted from the air. Sitting around hexagonal tables, they leaned over their plates, recited environmental prayers for regenerative growth and abundance. When they finished eating, a compost cleaning station ensured no scrap of the meal went to waste. Like, I love that. There's something so wholesome and hopeful in that. So I'm really enjoying it so far. We'll see how we get on with it. I'm hoping it's not a letdown, because I'm thoroughly enjoying it. So we'll see how we go. Okay, we have a problem. Look what I just realized. This is my copy of Outline, right? What I didn't realize, since I bought Outline off Amazon and these from the bookstore, look what I did. So I'm gonna have to sell this one on eBay or something and then purchase the one that matches these. So this is is it Faber and Faber version? And then these are Picador. I made an oopsie. Now I gotta fix it or it's gonna bug the crap out of me. Definitely can't have this situation. Not gonna be able to leave that like that, so. So I decided to do some more book shopping online because there have been some books recently I haven't seen in the store. They haven't like been available when I've like gone to look for them. The first one, which ignore this, I'm not actually gonna buy Hellbent right now. This hardback edition is gorgeous, but I have to wait for the paperback to come out because I just don't like reading hardcovers. What I do is I go on Pinterest. That's where I keep all of my books organized. I have a to be read board on there split up into different genres. So what I'll do is I'll go on here and look for a book that I've been meaning to read for a while. And I think I'm gonna look this one up, called What You Were Doing, or What I Was Doing While You Were Breeding. It sounds really fascinating. So I'm gonna look that up and then see if I can get like a paperback version of it. It just sounds really cool. I don't remember where I heard about this one. Basically, it is about a woman who decides to travel instead of settling down. Basically, she wants to go and sort of get away from the typical like find a husband, get married, have babies kind of thing, and she wants to go like travel instead. Anyway, it sounds really good. I think I'm gonna add this one to my bag. And then speaking of memoirs, I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. I have seen so many interviews of her like talking about this book. It sounds really good. Obviously really like terrible and like difficult, but I know I've kind of missed like the mark on this one. I feel like there's so many things that I read like way after the trend, like way after everybody's already read them. It's not out in paperback yet, so I'm gonna have to wait however long until the paperback comes out to read that one. So, or the audiobook. Maybe I should listen to the audiobook. And then it's been a minute since I've dipped into science fiction, which is one of my favorite categories, one of my favorite genres to read. A Half-Built Garden sounds really interesting. I think I was flipping through one of those like book page, like little magazine newsletter things that tells you like what books are coming out. I was flipping through one of those and this, the synopsis for this was in there. It sounds really interesting, but it's on pre-order for paperback. So again, I'm not going to order that one because I don't enjoy reading hardbacks. And then I can't remember who it was. There was some booktuber recently talking about the 5 Wounds, and I have seen this in the store once, and then I never saw it again. They had like one copy. I didn't pick it up at the time because I hadn't heard anything about it. I didn't know what the reviews were like, so I didn't buy it, and I haven't seen it since. So it sounds really cool. It takes place in New Mexico. Boyfriend and I really love New Mexico. We went 2 summers ago, and it's a really magical, beautiful city. So that'll be interesting. And then I have been trying to incorporate more like Native American stories into my reading. So I'm going to be adding this one to my cart as well. This video is totally not sponsored by Barnes & Noble or Pinterest. love both of them. And then if you guys are ever interested in like what I've read in the past or like what I would like to read, I always have my Pinterest linked in the description box. In terms of just fiction, this is the category that I probably add things to the most. Somebody who I'm interested in reading more of is Sarah Gailey, because I read The Echo Wife at the beginning of last year. It was this time last year, actually. It was January 2022, and it was really good. I think I'm gonna try to limit myself to like 3 books, like cap myself off at $50, because if I don't, things get crazy fast. Guys, I'm just sitting out here at a random creek. Boyfriend went off fishing. He's somewhere, I don't know. And I just usually bring a blanket and a book. Willa, the main character, we've seen like a pretty good chunk of like flashback that's leading up to present, like the present timeline. And she's currently like working with young Camp Hope recruits, and it's kind of her duty, like it's her job now to like get them familiar with how it works. Camp Hope hasn't actually launched yet, like it's not a public thing yet that many people know about. We're kind of in this weird kind of in-between phase where she has this new responsibility. She goes from kind of being hated for reasons that I won't say because I don't want to give anything away, but she kind of goes from being hated by a lot of like the current members of Camp Hope to being very important. She's very involved with the leader. I forget if they give him like a title. She's kind of entangled with him. We'll see where it goes. Right now I feel like there's a lot of lead up. I'm really hoping it pays off. I've read books before where there's like so much lead up to like that climactic scene, and then when it finally happens it's a little bit of a letdown, so we'll see how it goes. Alright guys, it is time for the review. It's kind of gloomy outside today. It's pretty cold too, so if you can hear the heater, hopefully it's not too distracting. So this is the first book that I have finished this year. First book of 2023, which is really exciting. I don't know if I've mentioned this already. I'm gonna really prioritize quality over quantity this year. Instead of just trying to blitz through as many books as I can, I just really want to be mindful of what I'm reading, why I'm reading it. I don't just want to pick up what's on the bestseller list because it's on the bestseller list, and I feel like I'm gonna have FOMO if I don't read it and everybody on booktube's talking about it. I want to pick up stuff because I genuinely am interested in the storyline. So it's gonna be quality over quantity this year. I want to focus a little bit more on personal growth type stuff this year as well, because I find that it really helps my mood. It keeps me positive. It makes me feel just better when I'm reading books like that and not just fiction all the time. I just really want to let go of that feeling of like, oh, I need to get to the next one. I need to get to the next one, because then I'm not enjoying the book that I'm currently reading. Instead of setting goals that are very number oriented, I would really like to focus on quality and what I actually want to read in the moment. So that being said, I gave this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. Could have been better. I had not like issues with it necessarily, just some things didn't really pan out. There were some things that were kind of unexplored and underdeveloped. Overall, I enjoyed it. I think the thing that kind of threw me off the most, and this happens sometimes when you read a synopsis and then it doesn't, like you feel like the book, what actually happens in the book and the plot doesn't quite match up with the synopsis, was it talks about like eco-warriors, like Willa, the main character, is, you know, kind of described in the synopsis on the back as an eco-warrior. She's inspired by the message of the book that she reads called Living the Solution, which is like this utopic sort of guidebook on how to create a better world and fight climate change and all that stuff. There was so much of this that was all about the lead up to her finding the book in the first place, that by the time I was maybe 100 pages, even 50 pages from the end, we were still in that phase of like this like flashback of when she originally found the book and how all that came to be and who she met along the way. I felt like we were getting so close to the end, and I'm like, we know like what's actually happening at the camp, like what's happening at Camp Hope right now. Like that's what I'm here for. That's the part that I found the most fascinating, was how the place was running and how it was set up and what they were going to do and what their plans were. There's sort of a ticking clock of, when is Camp Hope gonna launch? When are they gonna make it public? When are they have these big plans to invite influencers to come in and vlog it and get it out there on the internet, and newspaper reporters. I like my reviews to be fairly spoiler free, but I was a little let down, a little disappointed, because that didn't quite happen in the way that I wanted it to. So I've got my handy dandy notebook here. This is the new one for 2023, but it's just a moleskin, same as last year. It's just I just get the dot pages. So I've got the date that I finished it, the rating, the title, author, genre, page count, and format that I'm reading it in. And then just all my notes, quotes, anything that I have to say about it goes on the pages. First of all, a note on Willa herself, the main character. So she's grown up in an environment that's very sheltered. Her parents are conspiracy theorists. They're like doomsday preppers. She's basically trained on how to survive an apocalypse. She is absolutely fascinated by this idea, completely enchanted by the idea of Camp Hope once she finds this book. There is some tragedy that happens fairly early on in the book, and so she kind of uses nature as her inspiration, which is why she feels so connected to the environmentalist movement. She says nature made a place for itself, and I would make a place for myself too. And she talks about her childhood, spending afternoons building terrariums, which is a metaphor that comes up continually throughout the book. And so later when she falls in love with someone, she says, I felt like an interesting specimen in the woods, a little flower, a sapling. I wanted to be plucked, looked at, loved. Her need for love and her need to kind of find a place to land, she's trying to find it in people. She's trying to find it in Roy Adams, who's the guy who supposedly wrote Living the Solution, the book that she's, that's inspired her so much. She's trying to find it in that Harvard professor, Sylvia, because she thinks she can really make a change because she's got this platform where her voice could be amplified. She's always trying to find herself, who she's going to become as a woman, in other people, and that's kind of the thing that begins a slow spiral toward the end. Roy Adams is pretty stereotypical. I was a little disappointed in his description. He strode through the grounds on tree trunk thighs, his shark tooth necklace swinging, his aviators glinting. He's basically Quaritch from Avatar. He's a G.I. Joe. Very stereotypical, kind of like alpha male. So that was a little disappointing. It would have been interesting to see him portrayed as maybe a woman, or I don't know, just something other than sort of the typical G.I. Joe that we're expecting. Definitely in that final chapter, in chapter 10, there were some things that came up that are very briefly kind of mentioned. We just sort of like fly over them, and then there's no real solution or ending explained. And so you're like, why was that scene in there? Why did the author even write that? Because it doesn't really relate to anything other than maybe being a metaphor to try to spur something within the reader to feel this urge to change, to make positive change for the future. There was a plot twist that I didn't guess. It always becomes obvious once you know what the plot twist is. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, that does make sense. But I didn't guess it, so that's good, because I would have been really annoyed if I had. Ultimately, I think it's less about eco-warriors or climate change, and it's more kind of just a metaphor for a young woman's journey to finding herself, and that in and of itself is obviously very universal. Ultimately, I think the author's message is stay hopeful, remain positive, remain hopeful. I think that's the thing that Willa is able to do, maybe because of her upbringing by these like survivalist parents, or maybe it's just some sort of like bravery she's found in herself. And my favorite thing about her as a character was you can stay brave, stay strong, be passionate, don't give up. She sacrifices a lot personally for this movement, and so I feel like that's kind of the ultimate message, is we can stay positive, we can make a change, but we do kind of have to get up off of our butts, and it's got to be less talk and more action. Definitely an interesting read. I did get a few things from it, and you ultimately are supposed to feel hope in the end. So it's not all about disaster. If you approach this more as a journey that a woman's going on to try to find out kind of who she is and what she wants, and make a actual positive change in the world, and not so much like an eco thriller. Is that a genre? Is that like a subgenre? That would be really cool if it was. So if you come at it from that kind of perspective and not so much thinking it's going to be like so full of action, then I think you will really enjoy it. First book of 2023 is done. You guys let me know what you're reading. What did you read this month? What are you reading next month? All of it. I want to know what's on your TBR. Like I said, I'm definitely going to be more mood reading and not so much planning everything out, but I still want recommendations because you guys know I always ask. So thank you for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye, guys. Now I gotta fix it or it's gonna bug the crap out of me, because I mean, I cannot leave that. I'm talking to my friends.